Have you ever felt that your pet understands you in ways no one else can? As if, without words, they could sense your joy, your pain, your struggles? What if I told you that this is no coincidence? What if your pet isn't just a companion, but a messenger, a guardian, a piece of a divine plan set in motion since the beginning of creation? The truth is that animals aren't just part of our world. They were woven into God's purpose in ways most people have never imagined. And once you discover this, you'll never look at them the same way again. Most people see animals as simple companions, bringing joy and comfort to our daily lives. But hidden in the pages of Scripture lies an extraordinary truth that's been there all along. One that could transform how you see every animal interaction in your life. Think about it. Why did God create animals before humans? Why did He specifically bring them to Adam to be named? And why do so many pivotal moments in Scripture involve animals as messengers, protectors, and even speakers of divine truth? The answer lies in a pattern woven throughout the Bible. One that reveals how our relationship with animals isn't just about being kind to creatures who depend on us. It's actually a divine test of character, a mirror that reflects the true state of our souls. In the next few minutes, you'll discover the shocking truth about what your treatment of animals reveals about your spiritual condition. Why God chose animals as His first creation alongside humans. How your pet might be trying to tell you something you desperately need to hear. An incredible prophecy about animals that reveals God's ultimate plan for humanity. But most importantly, you're about to understand why that pet sleeping at your feet right now might be more than just a companion. They could be a divine appointment placed in your life for reasons you've never considered. This isn't just another feel-good video about pets. This is about uncovering a profound spiritual truth that's been hiding in plain sight since the beginning of creation. And by the end, you might never look at your pet or your faith the same way again. Are you ready to discover what God might be trying to tell you through the animals in your life? Let's begin. And prepare yourself, because what you're about to discover about God's original plan for animals will challenge everything you thought you knew about His creation. When God began His masterwork of creation, He didn't start with humans. Instead, on the fifth and sixth days, He filled the skies, seas, and land with living creatures. Each one, Scripture tells us, He saw as good. But why begin with animals? The answer reveals something profound about God's character and His vision for our world. Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, God declared. The livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals. This wasn't random. It was intentional. Each species, each creature was crafted with purpose and delight. Like an artist laying down the foundational colors of a masterpiece, God was preparing the world for something extraordinary. But it's what happened next that truly reveals the deeper meaning. When God created Adam, He did something unprecedented. He brought every animal to Him to be named. In ancient Hebrew culture, naming wasn't just about labels. To name something was to understand its essence, to recognize its purpose in God's grand design. Imagine that moment, the first human encountering each creature God had made. As Adam gave each animal its name, he wasn't just cataloging species. He was forming the first bonds between humanity and the animal kingdom. He was discovering through each creature another facet of God's creativity and love. Think about that moment at the shelter when your dog first pressed his head against your hand, or when that tiny kitten chose your lap among all others to curl up in. Perhaps you experienced something deeper than just a cute animal seeking attention. In that instant of pure trust and connection, like Adam in the garden, you might have felt an echo of that original bond, that divine moment when humans and animals first formed their sacred partnership. Whether it was a rescue animal learning to trust again, or a family pet staying by your side through illness, These profound moments of connection reflect something of that first sacred encounter in Eden. This explains why animals have such a profound effect on our hearts. When a dog offers unconditional love, when a cat shows complete trust, when a horse responds to our gentleness, we're experiencing remnants of that original harmony God intended between humans and animals. But this was just the beginning. God's purpose for animals went far beyond mere companionship. Throughout Scripture, we see them playing crucial roles: ravens feeding prophets, lions refusing to harm the faithful, great fish offering second chances. Each instance points to a deeper truth. Animals are not just part of God's creation, they're active participants in His ongoing story. Consider your own life. That pet who comforts you after a hard day, who seems to sense when you're unwell, who brings unexpected joy to your darkest moments. Could they be fulfilling a divine purpose? Could they be, in their own way, continuing that ancient partnership that began in the Garden of Eden? As we'll see next, this connection between humans and animals isn't just about companionship. It's actually a test of our character, a mirror that reflects the true nature of our hearts. The righteous care for the needs of their animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel. These words from Proverbs chapter 12, verse 10, aren't just a suggestion. They're a revelation about the human heart. God chose to make how we treat animals a measure of our character, but why? Think about it. An animal can't demand their rights. They can't file complaints or seek justice. They rely completely on the goodness of those who care for them. This absolute vulnerability makes our treatment of them one of the purest tests of character possible. When no one's watching, when there's no reward or recognition, how do you treat the creatures in your care? Jesus taught us, "Whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." While he spoke of helping humans, the principle extends further. If we're called to care for the vulnerable, what about the most vulnerable creatures of all? Our pets can't tell us when they're hurt. They can't explain their needs. They trust us completely, unconditionally. This trust is both a gift and a test. When your dog looks at you with complete devotion, when your cat depends on you entirely for their well-being, you're being offered a chance to reflect God's character, to show mercy, to demonstrate faithfulness, to express love without expecting anything in return. But there's a warning here too. History shows that cruelty toward animals often precedes cruelty toward humans. When we harden our hearts to the suffering of animals, something changes within us. Each act of neglect, each moment of indifference can slowly erode our capacity for compassion. Consider this. Have you ever noticed how children naturally empathize with animals? How they instinctively want to help a hurt bird or comfort a scared dog? That's not just childhood innocence. It's a reflection of God's original design for the relationship between humans and animals. But the test goes beyond just avoiding cruelty. It's about active care, about choosing to be generous with our time, attention, and resources. When we carefully tend to an animal's needs, we're practicing the kind of selfless love that God shows to us. We're participating in His ongoing work of care and protection. This brings us to a challenging question. What does your treatment of animals say about your heart? Not just the obvious acts of care, but the small daily choices. The patience shown when they're difficult, the sacrifice of comfort for their well-being, the willingness to put their needs before your convenience. Because as we're about to see in our next section, God can use animals in extraordinary ways to speak to us, but only if our hearts are open enough to listen. On a dusty road in ancient times, one of the most extraordinary encounters between humans and animals took place. The story of Balaam and his donkey isn't just a tale of the supernatural. It's a profound lesson about how God can use animals to open our eyes to truth we're too blind to see. Picture the scene. A man consumed by greed and ambition rides his faithful donkey down a narrow mountain path. But something is different today. The donkey, an animal that has served him faithfully for years, suddenly stops. When Balaam strikes her, she presses against a wall, crushing his foot. Finally, she simply lies down, refusing to move another step. What Balaam couldn't see, but his donkey could, was an angel of the Lord, standing in the path with a drawn sword. 3 times the donkey tried to protect her master, and 3 times he beat her in anger. Then something unprecedented happened. God opened the donkey's mouth to speak. "What have I done to you?" the donkey asked, "that you have beaten me these 3 times?" In that extraordinary moment, an animal became the voice of divine wisdom, speaking truth to a man who had lost his way. This story challenges everything we assume about the relationship between humans and animals. Here was a creature, considered stubborn and unintelligent, seeing spiritual reality more clearly than a supposed prophet of God. Through this humble animal, God revealed how pride and greed had blinded Balaam to divine truth. Consider your own life. Have there been moments when an animal seemed to sense something you couldn't? A dog growing restless before a storm? A cat staring intently at something invisible? These instances might be more than just animal instinct. They might be echoes of that ancient truth. Sometimes animals can perceive what we cannot. But there's an even deeper message here. The donkey had always been faithful, yet Balaam had taken her loyalty for granted. Only when God gave her a voice did Balaam realize how blind he'd been to her devotion. How often do we, too, miss the messages being sent through the animals in our lives? This biblical account reminds us that God can use any creature, from the most magnificent to the most humble, to guide us, protect us, and even speak to us. The only question is, are we listening? The extraordinary connection between animals and humans isn't just confined to biblical times. Today, stories of animals acting as guardians, healers, and even lifesavers continue to emerge, pointing to something deeper than mere coincidence. Consider the story of Maya, a German shepherd in California. One night, she began frantically pawing at her sleeping owner's chest. Moments later, the owner suffered a heart attack. Maya's warning gave her precious minutes to call for help, saving her life. Doctors later confirmed that without those crucial minutes of warning, she wouldn't have survived. Then there's the remarkable account of Noah, a therapy cat in a nursing home in Rhode Island. Staff noticed that Noah would curl up only with residents in their final hours, providing comfort when it was needed most. More surprisingly, his presence helped ease anxiety in patients who had previously been unreachable, opening doors that even skilled therapists couldn't. But perhaps most extraordinary is the story of Winter, a bottlenose dolphin who lost her tail but went on to inspire thousands of people with disabilities. Her resilience and adaptation to a prosthetic tail has helped countless wounded veterans and children with disabilities find hope in their own recovery journeys. These aren't just heartwarming animal stories. They point to something profound about God's design, how He can work through His creatures to bring healing, protection, and hope. When a service dog alerts its owner to an oncoming seizure, when a therapy horse helps a traumatized child find their voice again, when a cat's purring helps lower their owner's blood pressure, we're witnessing modern miracles. Scientists might explain these phenomena through instinct, training, or evolutionary adaptation. But for those who've experienced these moments, there's often a sense of something more, a divine hand working through these creatures to touch human lives. Think about your own experiences. Has there been a moment when an animal seemed to be more than just a pet? Perhaps they came into your life at exactly the right moment, or somehow knew exactly what you needed. These aren't coincidences, they're reminders of the special role animals continue to play in God's plan for human well-being. The wolf will live with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. These words from Isaiah paint an extraordinary picture of the future, a world where the divisions between humans and animals dissolve into perfect harmony. This prophecy isn't just poetry, it's a glimpse into God's ultimate plan for creation. Imagine a world where fear no longer exists between species, where the natural order of predator and prey gives way to peaceful coexistence, where the trust between humans and animals is completely restored to what it was in Eden. But this vision is more than just a future promise. It's a blueprint for how we should live today. When we show kindness to animals, when we protect and care for them, we're participating in this restoration. We're offering the world a preview of what's to come. Think about those moments of perfect trust between you and an animal. When a wild bird feeds from your hand, when a frightened rescue dog finally lets you touch them, when your cat falls asleep on your chest, completely vulnerable. These are more than just sweet moments. They're glimpses of God's coming kingdom. In this future kingdom, the barriers we've built between ourselves and the natural world will crumble. The fear that entered creation after the fall will dissolve. Every creature will once again recognize humans not as threats or masters, but as stewards and friends. This isn't just about pets. It's about a fundamental healing of the relationship between humans and all of God's creatures. The prophecy shows us that in God's perfect plan, the animal kingdom isn't eliminated or diminished. It's elevated and restored alongside humanity. As we wait for this future kingdom, every act of kindness toward animals, every moment of protection and care becomes an act of prophecy. We're declaring our belief in this coming restoration. We're choosing to live now as we will then, in harmony with all of God's creation. We began this journey by asking if there was more to our relationship with animals than meets the eye. Now we can see that our pets and the animals around us aren't just creatures sharing our space. They're part of a divine story that stretches from creation to the coming kingdom. Every time you look into your pet's eyes, remember, you're participating in a relationship that God designed from the beginning. When you show kindness to an animal, you're not just being compassionate. You're reflecting God's character and participating in His vision for creation. Your pet isn't just a pet. They might be a messenger, a guardian, a healer, or a teacher. They might be the very instrument God is using to shape your heart, test your character, or remind you of His faithfulness. So I want to ask you something. What has an animal taught you about God's love? How has a creature in your life changed your perspective or touched your heart in a way that left you different? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this message has touched you, share it with someone who needs this reminder of God's care expressed through His creation. Sometimes the deepest spiritual truths come to us not through grand revelations, but through the quiet devotion of the animals God has placed in our lives. Remember, in God's eyes, every creature has a purpose, every relationship has meaning, and every act of kindness toward His creation is an act of worship.